Hey guys, welcome to the video. Today we're going to be talking about replacing your Nintendo Switch Joy-Con analog stick. Of course, the reason you're going to be doing this is the infamous joystick drift, the ghost inputs. It's pretty easy to get into, guys. It's nothing too complicated or crazy, so let's get into it. Alright, so for tools, we're going to need the Y00 screwdriver, a Phillips 1.5 screwdriver as well. Now note, these all came with my joysticks. I got these from Amazon. You can get them just about anywhere. And it always comes as a whole kit. This one came with plastic tweezers, which is really nice so you don't damage any pins. It came with a pry tool to separate the housing and a guitar pick. These are the joysticks themselves. They are a little bit different than what we're taking out, so we'll note that later. And of course, they come with some extra screws and rubber caps that no one really wants. Okay, guys, so the next thing we have to do, of course, is take the 4 screws out of the back of the controller housing. This is where you're going to need your 00 tri-wing screwdriver, the one with 3 tips. And this is the only time we're going to need it for this repair, is for these exterior screws. So just take all 4 of them out, and that's the only thing holding this together. After that, we have to separate the 2 housings. I prefer to use the long pick tool, but you can use the guitar pick. It's entirely up to you. It doesn't matter. Just take it and slide it in an edge that you can fit it in. I prefer the bottom, and then slide it along to release the clips along the whole housing. It doesn't take a lot of effort to release it, just a little bit. Something important to note though, when you are taking this apart, you have to separate it like a book and just watch the video. You'll see as I do here. I separate it this way because there's 2 cables on the inside of the controller, and these are essential. If these 2 cables rip, the controller's no good. You're going to have to replace it, okay? It's very important. That is what connects it to the Switch itself in handheld mode, so it won't recharge without that. The battery's just held in by friction. There's nothing, no glue or anything like that, which is really nice. I just tuck them aside. A lot of guys do take it out, so use your own discretion there, but I just prefer to tuck it aside. I've done this repair several times and haven't had any issues yet. So after we remove the battery, we have to remove the 3 battery tray screws. See, as shown here, we don't have to remove all 5 screws, and it looks like you do, but you do have to get the 3 that I've removed. Alright guys, so once we get all the screws out of the battery tray, we can go ahead and just remove the battery tray and trigger assembly now. I use tweezers just to be gentle, but you really don't need to. Just do be cautious though when you remove this that you open it the opposite way that we open the controller housing, because it as well is connected by a ribbon cable. So if we just haul that out of there, we're going to have some major problems. Alright, as you guys can see here, there's 1, 2, and 3 ribbon cable connections that we're going to have to undo to make this repair. Now, these style connections are suitcase latch connections. They're pretty simple. You just pop up the clip, and then the ribbon cable is going to be free to come out. And just note that the 2 right side clips, the latch is on the opposite side of the ribbon cable, and with the left, it's on the same side as the ribbon cable. It's just something to note here. So once I get that popped up, then the cable should be free to remove. And you can see this one here, I'm popping it towards us. That's the opposite one, where it's on the same side as the cable. Once the latch is removed, we should be able to slide the cable out with little to no effort. Of course, I'm being really gentle here because I don't want to damage the cables. And now we can slide the battery tray and trigger assembly out of the way. This cable has to come off just so we can access the upper left-hand screw for the joystick itself. And the joystick's going to come out really stubborn. Next, let's remove the 2 screws for the analog stick. And then pull it out of the connector. Just note that this one was an aftermarket stick. I've already done this repair, and that's why this one was tighter. It wasn't an OEM part. Now we're just doing a quick comparison of the 2 sticks. You can see that there is an obvious difference on the 2 of them. I don't know what the internal difference between the 2 of them is. I hope there's something because I'm sick of replacing these. It's worth noting as well, I think, that the cable color is different. One that I'm replacing is gold and the replacement is green. So hopefully the green ones are a little bit better. Just something to look out for when you're doing this here. You have to get that cable back on top of the hole for the screw. You can see here I had a little bit of difficulty putting that back in. All right, once we have it in place, just make sure it's seated properly and all the way through the gasket, which this one now is. Now we can reinstall our analog stick connector. These do go in pretty tight, and it's a little bit tough because there's not a lot of room in there to bend that cable, but just have some patience and it will go. Also, it doesn't want to slide in all the way. This is normal. Just put it as far as it will go, and then close the suitcase latch on the opposite side. Once you have it in the connector and the latch is closed, you can use your tweezers or fingers and just give it a small tug test just to make sure that it's going to fit, it's in there good, and then you're fine. Don't worry about it. So next thing, we're going to have to install our screws. We're going to reinstall them with our Phillips 1.5. Now that our joystick is screwed back in, we can reinstall the ribbon cable that we had to remove to access the screws. Again, just slide it back into the connector. I know there's not a lot of room, but this one has wings on it, so it should be pretty easy to grab with tweezers or your fingers. Once it's lined up, just slide it in the connector and make sure it's in as far as you can get it, and then close the suitcase latch. Now, you may have noticed as I was doing this repair that I popped the bumper stick button out of it. This happens every time I do this repair, but it's really easy to fix. You just got to locate the spring on the centering tab there in the middle between those 2 posts. It's a little bit hard for me to focus on it, but you'll see where I put the spring. And then it's going to go back in at the top of the controller. It's only going to fit in one way, and you'll see where the spring perch is, as well as the micro button to line up with the. Once you get the trigger all lined up and back in place, then it's going to be time to reinstall the battery tray. Of course, the first step to reinstalling the battery tray is going to be replacing the ribbon cable back in its connector. This can be a little bit tricky to hold this up and do this at the same time, but if you have a little bit of patience, I think you'll get it no problem. Once it's seated in all the way, go ahead and close the suitcase latch connector again for the final time in this repair. Once you have the connector replaced, we're going to put the battery tray and trigger assembly back in position. Now it's time to replace the 3 screws that we removed using our Phillips 1.5 bit. Now that all the 3 screws are in place, I'm just checking to make sure that both trigger assemblies feel okay, which they do. Now, before we can put this puppy back together, we're going to have to put the battery back in its tray, which again is no problem because there's no adhesives or anything used, it just sits there. One important thing to note, for the rail where the Joy-Con connects to the Nintendo Switch, it has to be installed straight down and cannot be slid in sideways or crooked, and that's why I had to go out of frame here just to get that clipped in properly. But just put the 2 halves together equally and you'll be fine. You'll feel the 2 sides click together. Once this happens, we're good to install the screws. We're going to have to go back to our tri-wing screwdriver, the 00, to reinstall the 4 screws. Remember guys to like and subscribe because we're on the road to having 2 subscribers. You could be the first 2 subscribers. That's right. Now that we have our repair complete, you can see the Joy-Cons powering up, and now it's time to go into calibration mode. Wow, as you can see, this one's working perfect right out of the box. I don't need to calibrate it, but oftentimes you will. It'll be off just a little bit. Anyway, I hope you guys enjoyed the video. Thanks.